Welcome guys back to Aurelia. We have completely finished the part of the city between the downtown and the lower density residential areas on the hill. We built the elevated parks, some plazas, we extended some public transport lines, and of course did some detailing all around the place, and so on and so on. This means that we can now move on somewhere else around the soon-to-be big city park. We still have a lot to build around it, but since it's mostly empty, we first need to start with some infrastructure. So I decided we will build a highway interchange today. It's going to be on the highway closer to the river, and it's also going to serve as a connection over the highway to connect the main roads next to the park and by the river. And we will also rework the railroad there. So let's go. Alright, so for this project, I actually chose a real-life interchange to kind of to take some inspiration from it. It's not going to be 100% recreated in here, but it's kind of going to have the same principle. Now, we have the highway, obviously, and then we have a main road that's going to be parallel to it. It's this one that goes on the side of the park. It kind of makes up the outline of the park in this side as well. And then we will also have some kind of a road that goes over the highway, and like I mentioned earlier, it's going to connect this place to pretty much the entire district right next to the river. So it's going to be kind of complicated because we need to combine the interchange and also a normal intersection with those main roads. And the interchange that I talked about, the one that I am taking some inspiration from real life, is actually going to be very, very similar, or it is very similar, but I'm going to just make tiny little changes to the shape. I guess that the interchange is actually going to be like a partial cloverleaf, even though obviously non-standard, because it's going to have those specific circumstances that I talked about, right? The second road that's going to go over the highway, or maybe parallel to it. That's probably the road that's non-standard in here. Anyway, I'm using the same highways that I'm always using, the same highways that I actually used before to make some interchanges in the city previously. These are obviously from the workshop because they are more they are just more suited for this kind of work, especially for these kinds of connections back to the normal vanilla roads, like you have those main avenue roads, for example. And what I really like the most about these highway systems is that they have very, very narrow one lane highways, or ramps, you can call them. The vanilla highway is much bigger, pretty much the same size as a regular street, which is not really good if you want to create some like small scale details, like some off ramps and connections back to the main lanes and all that. So these are much better for it. Now, this highway is obviously not really going to be pedestrian friendly at all. I'm actually going to ban people from completely crossing those crosswalks over there on the right here, and completely ban them from entering pretty much the left side of those sidewalks there. Now, the reason for that is simple. This is pretty much like a car only area, and we will have some pedestrian only areas that like places dedicated only to pedestrians somewhere else, so that they're obviously not combined. But we're not going to build that today because this area is completely empty. I'm still not exactly sure where the buildings in this place are going to be. But it was kind of clear right from the start that this interchange is not really going to be just like the previous interchanges, like the ones I built already in the city. Obviously, mostly the big one, the main one in the center of the downtown, right? Which is obviously surrounded by buildings. But this one is going to be different. This one is going to be more green around it, and the buildings are kind of going to be more away from the interchange itself. I'm not yet sure what I'm going to build around here. Obviously, on the side of the park, there's going to be the park. There's not going to be any buildings over there. But on this side of the highway, I was actually thinking of a stadium, finally. And the way I'm going to rework the railroad in there is actually going to make like a perfect somewhat rounded shape for some kind of stadiums. I already downloaded some nice stadium models, so I could probably place a couple of them in there and obviously figure it out. I'm not sure if it's going to be for the next video, probably not. I will probably leave that project for some other time because I really want to focus on the park area first. But it's really good that we finally have this place figured out in advance like this. Anyway, this project is actually going to be completely detailed. I decided that I haven't really done any detailing of this sort in the city. Last intersection that I detailed like this was probably in the previous project, in the previous city that I built, which was a long time ago. So I kind of wanted to go back to it and see what we can do here. Use some different lines, different methods and all that to make it kind of look different from what I built already, because I just wanted to try it. I just wanted to try how it's going to look like. So as you can see, I'm obviously using a lot of the traffic manager functionalities here, because I need to force traffic to go into specific lanes and specific connections, because I obviously need to test if the lines are nicely positioned, because the cars are not going to go over them. And that's pretty much what's this all going to be. But it's obviously going to be also about making sure that all the cars have the right connections, that they can go wherever they want to go, and it's not really going to look all that strange. Like, the cars are not going to make some weird movement, which was particularly difficult with the mergings. For example, when the highway goes to this bridge over here, that was kind of difficult to make that work. And I obviously had to use a lot of detailing to cover maybe some unused lanes and all that. We also are going to use all these nice little detailed decals and props to make all these paintings on the roads, which is definitely going to help this place to look very, very good. Now, this kind of didn't actually take that long to make, because I was already sure how this place needs to be, how it needs to work, and it's not really all that super complicated interchange. Let's be honest. It's not really that much of a rocket science, this one. It's pretty much a proven concept of an interchange. Like I said, it's some kind of a slight modification of a partial cloverleaf. So it was some people already figured it out before me. So I'm just building what's already known. Obviously, we had to make sure that all the lanes are going exactly where we need them to go, and this interchange type is really friendly with this, and especially if you provide enough lanes for all the cars to go to, then you definitely won't have any problems. Now, this is definitely not a super high capacity interchange, but it doesn't really need to be in this place anyway. We can just have it like a medium capacity, which this particular type definitely is, and it's going to serve this purpose perfectly. It's going to provide traffic for pretty much the entire, the riverside area, especially going from the industrial zone. I have also noticed that some cars are even using this interchange when they are originating from the downtown and they want to go maybe towards that industrial area. I'm not sure why they're not using the main interchange, which is obviously closer to the downtown, but it's not really all that big of a deal. Right now, it kind of seems like I have a lot of traffic in here, but that's only because I am making sure that all the traffic around this place goes to particular lanes, pretty much for the reason that I told you about earlier, so that I can have very high traffic in particular lanes, so I can figure out the connections and obviously the paintings, the markers. Now, this intersection right here, this is obviously the entrance or exit point from the highway. And I decided to do it a tiny bit differently in this one, because turning left from the highway now has 2 lanes, which means that the road that's going on to the right now in this shot has 3 lanes, 2 for the cars who turned left, and 1 lane for going forward. So that we need to provide more markings in here to kind of match that functionality. And this actually turned out to be very, very complicated intersection at first, but in the end, and you will see that in the cinematic, of course, it's going to turn out looking really, really good. And it only shows what all you can do with simple markings, really, and a regular road connection in here, which is looking really, really good, like I said. Anyway, I kind of decided to leave this in one big shot pretty much in here, because I kind of did it without many pauses, so I don't need to edit it all that much. I decided that I want to fill somehow these I don't know how to call them, these traffic shadows. I'm not sure if it's called in English as well like this, but I decided to put just those planters and not really bother with it too much, so I just kept it like this with the rounded shapes, and it actually created some kind of an interesting, shape like that. So it's good. It's good. Otherwise, I would have to probably fill those places with some custom procedural objects, and these, non-regular shapes would not be exactly easy to do. Anyway, this is very important now. We are extending that riverside road, and I'm not exactly putting it all the way closer to the river, like right next to the river, like I did previously with that retaining sea wall, river wall, whatever you want to call it. Now, we obviously need to connect it to the highway, and I'm also going to build a train station in here. I'm going to use this elevated train station. I'm obviously going to replace the vanilla railroad on it with some I think it's called the railway replacer mod, with some of those railways from that mod, obviously to match the railroad that I use from now on. And we are going to make a nice looking bridge right from it. I'm going to make this kind of bridge, which is again part of the same mod, or the same asset collection that goes together with the mod. And this is what I was kind of talking about, that curve that goes directly from the train station that I built right now is actually going to perfectly outline the place where some kind of a stadium or some kind of a rounded building in general could be. And, stadiums are kind of round-ish, so it kind of makes sense that we are going to provide it in there. Finally, and kind of wanted to have a stadium right next to the river. So this is going to be a nice place for it. And it probably won't be the only stadium in the city. I'm not exactly sure. We will see about that. And like I said, the project for the stadium is probably going to take a long time still, because I want to focus on the park. So that was kind of like a very, very quick fix or quick rework to that area in regards to the railroad. But we will now go back to the interchange, because we still have some detailing there to go. I was not exactly sure if I want to go with the detailing like everywhere around the interchange and the intersections and all that, but obviously when we started doing it in one place, we kind of need to do it everywhere, right? So I downloaded these very, very nice network paintings. These are actually networks, which is nice because you can stretch them to whatever shape you need, and they actually come in different sizes as well, so you can have it really, really customize these places with not that much effort really put into it, because you don't need to paint the individual lines or stripes, right? So this is much, much better for these merging or entrance lanes right here. I'm obviously going to put these absolutely everywhere. So I'm just showing, I think, 2 instances of me doing this kind of detailing, but obviously we need to put it on the other side, on the opposite side of this highway as well, a couple of times, right? And obviously finishing all the lanes with Traffic Manager and all that. So we have it nicely functional. Putting some speed restrictions as well, so that it looks very, very smooth. And in this place, pretty much the exact same thing like we did before. Now, looking at this shot, guys, I actually have a kind of an announcement to make. I am planning on starting a new series. Don't worry, Aurelia is not really going to end. Definitely not going to end. It might sometimes be, that I'm not going to make it. If I'm not going to feel like I want to build the futuristic city anymore for a week, then I might concentrate on the other series. But right now, it's not really going to be like that. We should probably have Aurelia episodes as usual. So in these shots, I'm not going to disclose just yet what the next series is going to be, but in the cinematics and in some of these shots, you can actually see like a little something. We have Easter over here, so maybe we can call it Easter eggs in these shots. You can see that are going to somewhat spoil the topic of the next series. So if you're going to pay attention, then you will probably see it. Anyway, I'm almost to the end of the entire detailing of this place, because we are just putting down some decals in here, and this place is going to look really, really great with all the decals and all the trees and everything around it. Like I said, this interchange is not really going to have buildings around it, like right next to the interchange, unlike the interchange, the main one in the center of the downtown, and even the other ones that we built in the city. So I'm going to use pretty much the same trees that I used right next to the industrial zone, which is going to have very, very similar forests around it. And I'm going to use these Scots pines, the very, very tall trees in here, because like I said, like I said, we have a very, very open space around here, so tall trees do make sense here. And all kinds of different trees as well, obviously, because the trees are so tall, they need some kind of an undergrowth underneath them. Again, I'm kind of keeping this into a very long shot because I was kind of doing it very, very fast. I know that I could have downloaded the what's it called? The tree brush mod, I think. I'm not sure if it's called that way because we kind of do have a tree brush already in the game, but it's not exactly having the same functionality because with that mod, you can assign multiple different trees and paint them all at the same time. And I think you can also like set some like probability of the tree appearing there or something like that. But I was not exactly sure which trees I want to use here, and obviously bushes and all that. I kind of want to have a bigger control over where the individual trees are going to be placed. So I haven't used that mod just yet. But when we are going to go into the park, maybe it's probably going to be a lot easier to actually use that mod because that place is just huge. And obviously placing all the trees manually like this, or even with Move It, like chunks of the trees, copying with Move It is probably not exactly going to be all that easy. Yeah, you could have seen me there actually double check with the industrial zone how exactly I did it in there, what kind of trees I use, what kind of decals. Decals are very important, by the way, for these trees. It's just not going to look very good without them. And all the empty places between the decals, because you don't really want to overlap decals, otherwise they're going to look strange with the cinematics. So all the empty places between them, I'm just going to fill with some shrubs and all those kinds of things. I am probably going to go very, very close to the limit of the trees with with these kinds of works, with these kinds of projects, especially with the park. But well, hopefully it's not going to be all that terrible. All right, guys, so that's almost it for today's episode. Like I said, like I explained, we have some news coming. If you are obviously not following me on Twitter, then you probably should, because I am going to post all kinds of information about the new series right there. And, you know, just stay tuned for some kind of a first video of that. And like I said, Aurelia should not be all that much affected by this, because I probably will have time to build both in some reasonable time. Anyway, guys, we still have the cinematics. Thank you for watching today's Aurelia episode. I hope you liked it. If you did, then you can always put a thumbs up underneath the video. And if you are new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel and share the video with your friends. I will see you next week. Take care, guys, and goodbye.